Hello everybody, Ghostblade 1062 here with another locomotive review. Today we will be reviewing a Class 185.2 electric locomotive made by Roco in the DB Schenker Audi Logistik scheme. And now, on to the unboxing. Alright. Taking a look at the box, we have the standard dark blue and gray Roco box with the orange Roco logo on the front, as well as their website. The top, as well as the right side, have the Roco logo, while the bottom also has their main address, as well as a QR code, an age restriction warning, and the Roco logo, as well as recycling warnings. The back is blank as well, but looking on the left side of the box here, starting in the top left, we have the product ID of this locomotive, this being 7510015. It is a Deutsche Bahn locomotive in HO scale. It is a DC locomotive equipped with a decoder and sound. Road number 185-389-4. It is an Era 6 locomotive, meaning 2007 to present. Painted in a custom scheme that has been authorized by Audi. And here we have the product barcode. And we see that this locomotive was made in Vietnam, if I'm not mistaken. Now, taking off the lid, we have this sheet of softer foam on top for extra protection. And included in the box here, we have the locomotive held in place by a two-piece cradle and some softer plastic. As well as we have a little baggie of replacement parts, including couplers, snow plows. We have brake lines as well. And pulling the locomotive out, we can now look underneath to find our paperwork that is included. Included here, we have our function sheet, then we have a list of parts in case you need any replacement parts. And finally, we have the operator's manual. And here we have instructions for oiling and greasing the locomotive. We have instructions on how to replace the spare parts. We have traction tire installation and removal instruction. Decoder installation instructions. And now, finally, for the locomotive, taking off the top piece of plastic, we do have this foam on either end to help protect the locomotive from the hard plastic casing here. And picking it up, it has a fair bit of weight to it, but here we have the locomotive. And next, we will move on to the detail overview portion of the video. Alright, time to take a closer look at the locomotive. Starting at the head end of the locomotive here, we have our snowplow below the coupler. And then just above the coupler we have our buffer beam with our rectangular buffers. And in behind that, if I can get a good, we have our brake line hoses, as well as the hook coupler here, which there we go. So here are the brake line hoses, and then we have the coupling hook just above the coupler, and the same on, we have the brake line hoses on this side as well. Then just above that, we have some walkways, which are see-through. They are etched plastic. And then in the front center here, we have the road number, this being 185.389-4, with the head and tail lights on either side. Then we have separately painted, separately fitted red handrails and grab irons. In the center here, we have the Deutsche Bahn logo with the third headlight right above that. And we have two spots, which I missed earlier, for mounting the windshield wipers. And then we can take a look inside the cab too, where we see we actually have an engineer. Now, moving on to the side, we have separately fitted handrails on either side of the door with two door handles, which are separately painted, as well as we have this leaf design on the head end, which we can tell by the number 1 here just beside the door. And a see-through window. Looking at the frame, the truck itself, we have our brake and suspension detailing here. which is quite nicely done. And we have various capacity and warning information along the side of the frame here, as well as the full 12-digit classification number. We have the DB Schenker logo here, as well as their CO2-free advertising and the Audi Logistics markings going towards the rear cab. We also have our converter box here, as well as a tank cap for the sanding valves. And now moving on to the rear end of the locomotive, we again have our separately fitted handrails going up to the door with our steps going up, and the number 2 here depicting that this is the tail end of the locomotive. And again with see-through windows so that we can see inside the cab, though it is not overly detailed inside. Moving on to the tail end, we see much of the same detailing as the front end. With the plow, the rectangular buffers, we have the same walkways, handrails, and then looking at the other side, we see much of the same detailing. We also have the DB Schenker website posted along the front of the locomotive here. Looking at the top of the locomotive, we have various vents on either side of the locomotive. And then on either end we have our 2 horns, one high-pitched and one low-pitched, as well as our antenna right by the larger of the 2 horns. Then we have etched plastic grids on opposite corners of the main body here, with our electrical line and resistors, with the power running down in here, and we have our pantographs, which have a nice spring to them, and they are quite finely detailed as well. Now looking at the underside, we have our air reservoir tank here, as well as and here, with a converter box and sanding reservoir. Though we don't have much by ways of brake detailing. Actually, correction, this isn't a sanding box. Now that I take a closer look on the piping detailing here, this is actually where the compressor sits. So I do apologize about that mistake. But overall, a fairly decently decorated locomotive. a very nice paint scheme, that's for sure. It's got nice weight to it as well. And next, we will move on to the rip track segment. Time for the rip track segment. This will be a rather quick one, as I will not be changing the couplers over to Katie's like I usually do. So we will only be checking the wheel gauge, starting at the head end of the locomotive. Both axles are engaged, and now for the rear truck. Both axles are engaged, and if we look at this axle here in particular on the rear truck, we have traction tires on both wheels. So on top of this locomotive's weight, we do have traction tires as well, which will allow it to haul heavier loads. And now we will move on to a function test to see how this locomotive performs, as well as all of its 27 DCC functions. To begin the function test, we are going to start with seeing how the locomotive moves at speed step 1 of 128. I have off camera gone through and programmed the locomotive with the address that I want it under. But beyond that, I have not made any changes to the CVs. So starting at speed step 1, it is very, very slow, but it is moving fairly smoothly. So we can see this locomotive has great slow speed capabilities, being near imperceptible. And we start to see more noticeable movement getting up to speed step 4. Speed step 8, 10. So yeah, amazing slow speed capability. And now onto the actual functions, starting with function 0, the directional lighting. Function 1 is operating sounds. And this locomotive does have a fairly lengthy startup sequence. Function 2 is the high-pitched horn. Function 3, the low-pitched horn. Function 4 is the conductor's whistle. Function 5, coupler sounds. Function 6 is shunting mode. Which also engages a lower shunting speed. Function 7 is curve squeal. Function 8 is the high beams. Function 9 is the compressor sounds. Function 10, the manual fan sounds. Function 11 is the cab door sounds. Function 12 is the cab lighting for cab 2. Or rather, to shut it, it's supposed to shut it off. Function 13 is the same for the front cab. Function 14 is the mute function. Function 15 is supposed to be the destination board lighting, with function 16 being the same for the other cab. Function 17 is the two-tone horn. Function 18 is the long low horn. Function 19 is the train arrival announcement, or train arrival sound. Function 20 is a safety announcement. Function 21 is another announcement. Function 22 is sanding sound. Function 23 is the emergency brake. And handbrake. Function 24 is the safety driving switch. Function 25 is another announcement. Function 26 is volume increase. And finally, function 27 is volume decrease. And now for some run-by clips. Alright everybody, this concludes my review of the Roco HO scale class 185.2 electric locomotive in the DB Schenker Audi Logistik scheme. The locomotive as a whole is a very good performer. It's running quite smoothly so far. I currently have it running in, and by ways of appearances, it's very nice, very well detailed. I will at some point have to get around to attaching the final detail parts, such as the wiper blades, though that is not a major priority at this point in time. But by ways of overall performance, it's been doing very well. I haven't figured out how to operate all of the functions yet, primarily the destination function as well as the interior lighting functions. But aside from that, all of the other functions are working, which is good. It has a surprisingly long startup sequence, especially for an electric locomotive, but that is actually a very nice change of pace, at least that's what I find. And overall, it is a locomotive that I would highly recommend for anyone modeling modern era German operations. So that being said, if you enjoyed the video, leave a like or a comment, and subscribe for more model railroad content. Have a great day, everybody.